In this job, I've learned that the world still holds some remarkable surprises. The ocean nomads of the South Pacific, called the Bajau.
Imagine discovering an underwater tribe that not only exists, but thrives in tandem with the sea. This remarkable discovery questions our view of human history and resilience. Throughout history, civilizations have been lost to increasing sea levels and natural disasters, leaving buried ruins. Yet concealed beneath these waters, a living testimony to ancient customs has emerged. Today, we look at the incredible survival skills and deep connection these underwater cultures have with their aquatic environment. Let's dive in. The Sama-Bajau tribe. The Sama-Bajau people, commonly known as sea gypsies or sea nomads, are a separate ethnic group dispersed over Southeast Asia's maritime regions, including the Philippines, Malaysia, and Indonesia. They are well known for their seafaring lifestyle, navigating the waterways of the Sulu archipelago, coastal Mindanao, and other Borneo and Sulawesi islands. The Sama-Bajau's cultural identity is inextricably linked with the sea. They generally reside on houseboats known as lansa, which are expertly made utilizing techniques passed down through generations. These boats serve not just as homes, but also as commercial vessels, allowing them to fish and trade throughout the coastlines they inhabit. Their remarkable free-diving ability is essential to their survival. The Bajau have evolved physically over generations, producing enlarged spleens that allow them to remain submerged for up to 10 minutes at roughly 200 feet depth. This remarkable skill is critical for survival as they dive to catch fish, sea cucumbers, and other aquatic life that feed their groups. Historically, the Bajau were nomadic, wandering freely across the oceans without regard for present national boundaries. However, the formation of colonial boundaries and subsequent national legislation presented substantial obstacles. The Malaysian Immigration Act of 1959 and 63, for example, classified many Bajau as stateless or undocumented, limiting their access to fundamental rights like education and legal employment. Many Bajau have moved from traditional floating dwellings to land-based communities in response to legal constraints and economic pressures. One such colony is Bangau in Sabah, Malaysia, where Bajau families have adopted a more permanent lifestyle. While vital for survival, this transition has presented cultural issues as they try to preserve their maritime tradition while adjusting to life on solid land. Despite these developments, the Bajau maintain their ancient customs and talents. They are famed for their ability to build boats without formal designs, relying on hereditary expertise and hands-on experience. Fishing remains vital to their economy, with dugouts and nets used to gather fish, lobsters, and sea cucumbers, all of which constitute food and lucrative trading commodities. Bajau children are introduced to their maritime way of life at a young age. Children frequently accompany their parents on fishing trips, learning the art of hunting and gathering from an early age. This hands-on teaching assures the preservation of their cultural customs, even when external pressures threaten their traditional livelihoods. The Bajau have demonstrated remarkable perseverance in the face of adversity. They must negotiate the physical constraints of living at sea and the legal and social restrictions erected by modern nation-states. In some regions, their stateless status denies them citizenship rights, relegating them to the margins of society without access to public services such as education and healthcare. As the world changes around them, the Bajau fight to retain their identity as seafarers. Their capacity to adapt while conserving their cultural history demonstrates their creativity and tenacity. However, the future remains uncertain for many Bajau villages, as they struggle to find their place in a fast, modernizing society that frequently ignores their distinct way of life. Where did they come from? The Sama-Bajau people, known for their seafaring heritage, have spent centuries navigating Southeast Asia's waterways, expressing a distinct blend of cultural practices and historical tales that reflect their strong bond with the sea. Historically, the Sama-Bajau were primarily nomadic and maritime, surviving on subsistence fishing and coastal trading. Their way of life focuses on the sea, where they travel and live aboard handcrafted boats known as lipa, a habit that has defined their society for decades. Houses built on stilts along shorelines demonstrate their close link with marine ecosystems, providing easy access to fishing grounds and allowing for a semi-nomadic existence corresponding to seasonal fishing patterns. Oral traditions are important to Sama-Bajau identity, providing fascinating insights into their history and cultural evolution. Many of these stories revolve around a lost princess or a notable ancestor whose destiny influenced their migration and settlement patterns. Legends among Borneo's Sama-Bajau suggest ancestry from Johorian royal guards who followed Princess Dayang Ayesha to Sulu, only to lose her to Bruneian forces during a sea battle. This event allegedly led to their settlement in Borneo and Sulu, where they adopted Islam and blended with existing Malay societies, thereby establishing a distinct cultural identity. In contrast, Indonesian Sama-Bajau traditions frequently emphasize their ties to the Sultanate of Goa, with stories recounting the marriage of a royal princess who washed ashore and later married into the local aristocracy. These stories demonstrate the regional influences that have influenced Sama-Bajau's cultural heritage throughout multiple archipelagos and islands. Modern scholarly research has provided more insights into the Sama-Bajau's origins and historical development. While older oral traditions tied them to specific kingdoms like Johor and Goa, subsequent anthropological investigations have questioned these assertions because these states were very recently established. Instead, scholars believe the Sama-Bajau are descended from ancient hunter-gatherer groups in the Riau archipelago, who eventually mixed with Austronesian invaders when maritime cultures thrived throughout Southeast Asia. Anthropologists, such as Harry Arlo Nimmo, argue that the Sama-Bajau's boat-dwelling lifestyle evolved independently of other maritime people, such as the Orang Laut, emphasizing their distinct cultural trajectory and adaptation to coastal settings. This hypothesis questions previous beliefs and emphasizes the complexities of their ethnogenesis. Genetic studies have helped us better comprehend the Sama-Bajau's genetic diversity and past migrations. In 2021, researchers uncovered unique genetic markers in Philippine and Indonesian Sama-Bajau people, connecting their origins to ancient migrations from mainland Southeast Asia via buried land bridges during the Pleistocene epoch. This genetic evidence lends support to the idea of a complex ancestral background shaped by interactions with Negrito populations and subsequent Austronesian expansions across the region. The Sama-Bajau have historical roots in the Sulu archipelago and Mindanao, Philippines. According to historical accounts, the Sama-Bajau have occupied Southeast Asian marine regions since at least 840 AD, as recounted in the Maranao epic poem Darangan. This early remark emphasizes their indigenous presence before substantial regional migrations and colonies. European explorers first visited the Sama-Bajau during the Age of Exploration. Antonio Pigafetta, the chronicler of Ferdinand Magellan's trip in 1521, wrote one of the first documented accounts of their nomadic lifestyle and sailing talents. Pigafetta observed that the Sama-Bajau lived solely on boat and built floating communities, distinguishing them from permanent populations on land. Throughout the following decades, the Sama-Bajau remained important in historical accounts because of their nautical activities, which included fishing, commerce, and, most notably, piracy. Their skill as sailors and navigators allowed them to travel long distances over the oceans, from the Sulu archipelago to the Moluccas and Sulawesi. Their involvement in piracy and sea attacks, frequently led by Iranian commanders, put them at odds with European colonial powers and neighboring communities. Sama-Bajau communities were subjected to increasing scrutiny and repression throughout the colonial period as a result of their involvement in piracy and slavery. European powers and local governments attempted to limit their activities, resulting in displacement and marginalization of certain communities. The Sama-Bajau's tenacity in adjusting to these problems demonstrates their ability to preserve cultural practices and traditions in the face of external forces. The Sama-Bajau experienced more upheavals in the 19th and early 20th centuries as Southeast Asia transitioned to modern nation-states. The disintegration of old governmental organizations, such as the Sultanate of Sulu, undermined the socio-economic systems that relied on sea trade and exchange. As colonial forces took control of the region, the Sama-Bajau people faced land-based regulations and economic systems that threatened their traditional livelihoods. Today, the Sama-Bajau face difficulties that endanger their traditional identity and way of life. Modernization and sedentarization regulations have forced many people to settle on land, upending their centuries-old practice of living on boats or stilt dwellings. This change has exacerbated socioeconomic inequities, with many Sama-Bajau experiencing poverty, a lack of access to school, and restricted job possibilities. Cultural discrimination exacerbates their struggles, especially in Muslim-majority Mindanao, where dominant ethnic groups like the Tausug have long marginalized them. Terms like Luwan, which means spat out or outcast, represent long-held prejudices that have persisted in the Philippines despite efforts to promote cultural inclusion and diversity. Many Sama-Bajau have migrated to neighboring Malaysia and Indonesia for greater economic opportunities, although they struggle with legal status and social integration. As illegal migrants, they frequently face impediments to basic services and employment opportunities, creating cycles of poverty and vulnerability. Efforts to address these difficulties include initiatives to preserve Sama-Bajau cultural heritage, promote sustainable livelihoods, and advocate for indigenous peoples' rights. Non-governmental organizations and community-led projects have been critical in delivering healthcare, education, and skilled training to Sama-Bajau communities, allowing them to enhance their quality of life. Despite these attempts, the Sama-Bajau's future remains uncertain because of ongoing socioeconomic and environmental changes. Overfishing, environmental deterioration, and climate change pose hazards to the traditional fishing grounds and way of life. Free-diving adaptations. Every day in the waters of Tagbilaran City, Bohol, Philippines, a stunning scene unfolds. Sama-Bajau toddlers diving deep to gather coins flung by tourists. These seafaring people, recognized for their outstanding free-diving talents, spend hours submerged below, owing to their distinct genetic adaptations and centuries-old nautical culture. The Sama-Bajau, often known as sea nomads, live in the Philippines, Malaysia, and Indonesia oceans. Their livelihoods are based on diving for fish and obtaining natural resources from the sea, skills passed down through generations. What distinguishes them is their capacity to remain submerged for extraordinarily lengthy periods, up to 13 minutes at depths of around 200 feet, far beyond the capabilities of most other humans. Recent scientific research has given insight into the molecular underpinnings that permit such incredible accomplishments. According to research published in the journal Cell, the Sama-Bajau have a genetic abnormality that causes them to have much larger spleens than neighboring inland populations such as the Salawans. The spleen is vital in freediving because it stores oxygen-rich blood, which is then released into the bloodstream during deep dives to prolong breath-holding. Melissa Lardo, a researcher at the University of Copenhagen's Center for Geogenetics, traveled to learn firsthand about these genetic adaptations. During visits to Indonesia, she carried portable ultrasound equipment to evaluate spleen sizes and collected genetic samples from the Sama-Bajau and Salawan. Her research found that the Sama-Bajau spleens were, on average, 50% larger than Salawans, highlighting their evolutionary advantage in underwater endurance. The genetic basis for their enlarged spleens is a mutation in the PDE10A gene, which regulates thyroid hormones. These hormones, in turn, alter spleen size, indicating a clear link between genetic adaptation and physiological competence in the Sama-Bajau. Richard Moon, a Duke University School of Medicine researcher who specializes in high-altitude and deep-sea adaptations, emphasizes that genetic predisposition alone may not be sufficient to explain the Sama-Bajau's diving abilities. Extreme pressure conditions necessitate adaptations. As divers descend further into the ocean, the increased pressure causes their lungs to fill with more blood. While this physiological reaction can be dangerous, primarily if not controlled effectively, it is most likely accompanied by genetic modifications that improve oxygen storage and utilization. Cynthia Beale, an anthropologist at Case Western Reserve University, finds connections between her studies on high-altitude groups, such as Tibetans. She believes that studying the biochemical adaptations of the Sama-Bajau could provide valuable insights into human responses to hypoxia, a condition in which the body lacks oxygen, which can lead to serious health consequences. Aside from their physiological adaptations, the Sama-Bajau's cultural customs also contribute to their diving abilities. Some people intentionally rupture their eardrums at an early age to facilitate diving despite the long-term repercussions of hearing loss. This cultural heritage emphasizes their strong connection to the sea and their determination to learn underwater survival techniques at an early age. In addition to their larger spleens and cultural customs, the Sama-Bajau have better underwater eyesight than Europeans, as seen in another sea-dwelling culture, the Moken. While the genetic reason for this improved vision is unknown, it highlights the complex interaction between genetics and environment in generating human physiological adaptations. Japanese Ama divers. Let's take a peek at the guardians of Japan's coastal waters. Ama, Japan's legendary sea women, reflect a centuries-old maritime prowess and cultural significance legacy. Ama, most known for its pearl diving skills, has carved out its place in Japan's coastal villages, representing tenacity, tradition, and a strong connection to the water. Ama diving has been practiced in Japan for at least 2,000 years, with records reaching back to AD 1927 during the Heian period. Initially, AMA were largely seafood hunters, particularly abalone, which had a high ceremonial value in Japanese culture and was frequently donated to temples and the imperial family. Traditionally, AMA were recognizable not just by their diving abilities, but also by their unusual clothing. They donned white diving costumes to symbolize purity and perhaps ward off sharks. Until the mid-20th century, AMA divers often wore only a loincloth while diving, which allowed them to move more freely in the water. However, when cultural norms changed and the need for their skills increased, AMA began to wear all-white sheer diving costumes to improve visibility and project a more dignified image while working. The introduction of farmed pearls marked a watershed moment in AMA history. In 1893, Kokichi Mikimoto transformed the pearl industry by successfully culturing pearls, a method that relied significantly on the expertise of AMA divers. Mikimoto Pearl Island in Toba City became the epicenter of this thriving sector, attracting international attention and cementing a strong link between AMA and pearl diving in the eyes of the globe. Today, Mikimoto Pearl Island is a popular tourist destination where visitors may watch AMA diving performances and learn about the history of pearl harvesting. AMA divers often begin their training early, usually at 12 or 13 years old, and are guided by experienced older divers. This apprenticeship concept enables the transmission of skills and traditions through generations. Despite starting early, AMA divers are recognized for their longevity in the industry, with many continuing to dive well into their 70s. It is believed that their intense training and physical conditioning from diving contribute to their longer lifespans, making them beloved individuals in their communities. Female AMA have always been favored because of their diving abilities. Women are thought to have more body fat spread more evenly than men, which provides superior insulation against the cold waters they frequent. Furthermore, women are regarded to have stronger breath-holding ability, which is essential in freediving when no scuba gear or air tanks are utilized. Due to their innate advantages, female divers have always been chosen for pearl harvesting and seafood collection along Japan's shores. AMA culture is filled with rites and superstitions that reflect their close connection to the sea. One continuing practice is wearing headscarves ornamented with symbols such as Simon and Domon, which are said to bring good luck and protect divers from harm. Additionally, Ama frequently creates modest shrines near their diving sites, where they offer prayers of thanks for safe returns from the water. These rituals emphasize Ama life's spiritual and community components, reinforcing their identity as custodians of the sea and its abundance. Ama diving conditions are tough, subjecting them to frigid temperatures and high pressures deep into the ocean. During diving seasons, which normally last several months, Ama engages in strenuous physical activity that can result in significant weight loss. To meet the needs of their occupation, Ama has developed specialized skills, such as a peculiar whistling sound called isobu, which is emitted upon surfacing. This characteristic whistle serves not only utilitarian objectives, such as signaling their location to boatmen, but it also has cultural importance by indicating their presence in the aquatic landscape. Despite its legendary significance in Japanese society, the future of AMA diving remains uncertain. Modernization and changing socio-economic dynamics have resulted in a decrease in the number of active AMA divers. In 1956, there were roughly 17,000 AMA in Japan, but by 2010, the number had dropped to only 2,000. Factors contributing to this loss include younger generations' lack of enthusiasm in pursuing the hard profession and economic trends that have lowered demand for conventional diving methods. Furthermore, environmental threats like overfishing and rising water temperatures jeopardize the delicate balance of marine ecosystems that sustain AMA livelihoods. Efforts to maintain traditional fishing techniques have included the implementation of legislation aimed at conserving marine resources, such as size restrictions on harvested shellfish like abalone. These strategies are intended to ensure the long-term viability of AMA communities while maintaining the ecological integrity of coastal waters. The legacy of AMA divers demonstrates Japan's marine heritage and cultural endurance. Through generations of dedication to their art, AMA has survived and enhanced Japanese culture with its customs, rituals, and intimate knowledge of the sea. Despite facing modern obstacles such as demographic upheavals and environmental constraints, AMA villages maintain a deep regard for nature and a dedication to preserving their way of life. The Moken people. The Moken people are also known as the sea nomads. They live on the Andaman Sea's coasts and islands bordering Thailand and Myanmar. Their distinctive way of life is inextricably linked to the water, distinguishing them in terms of adaptation and cultural practices. The Moken descended from Austronesian peoples who moved from southern China circa 5,000 to 6,000 years ago. Initially established on coastal islands, the marine environment influenced their agricultural lifestyle. However, rising sea levels over millennia led them to adopt a nomadic marine lifestyle, significantly impacting their cultural identity and adaptation strategies. This history marks them as a unique ethnic minority with a rich cultural legacy, despite Myanmar and Thailand's efforts to assimilate them into larger socio-economic frameworks. The Moken have traditionally followed a semi-nomadic hunter-gatherer lifestyle centered on the sea. They are adept marine foragers who harvest various marine resources using sustainable approaches. Fish, clams, sea cucumbers, and other marine life are harvested with traditional instruments like nets and spears. Their vast understanding of the sea and its resources allows them to navigate and survive in the fluctuating coastal and island ecosystems. During the dry northeast monsoon season, approximately November to April, the Moken used to live in kabang, traditional boats that served as transportation and as mobile residences furnished with basic amenities. These kabang canoes were essential to their existence since they provided mobility and flexibility in following seasonal resources and weather patterns. During the southwest monsoon season, May to October, they often set up temporary land camps, using the time to repair boats and forage in the adjacent forests. Moken identity is centered on their distinct Austronesian language, which strengthens their cultural cohesion and history. The language symbolizes their ethnic and cultural identity, distinguishing them from other ethnic groups in the region. Despite external efforts to adapt to Myanmar and Thailand's mainstream cultures, the Moken have preserved their language and cultural practices, as well as their collective memory and conventions. The Mokens have developed a complex grasp of their natural surroundings through generations of interaction with the water and coastal ecosystems. Their practices prioritize sustainability and minimal environmental effects, demonstrating a deep respect for the natural world and its resources. This traditional ecological knowledge encompasses seasonal movements, foraging tactics, and conservation activities that ensure the long-term viability of marine resources required for survival. One of the most impressive adaptations of the Moken people is their children's superior underwater eyesight. Unlike most people, Moken youngsters can see underwater, aiding their foraging activities. This astonishing skill has been extensively researched, demonstrating that Moken youngsters can significantly improve their underwater eyesight by adjusting their pupil size and lens shape. This modification allows them to dive for food more precisely and clearly than European children's underwater vision. Despite their tenacity and adaptability, the Moken encounter various problems in the contemporary world. The 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami devastated numerous Moken settlements, prompting Thai authorities to conduct relocation and resettlement measures. While these initiatives were intended to improve safety and livelihoods, they frequently resulted in losing traditional cultural practices and social solidarity among the Moken. External pressures like tourism, development projects, and environmental conservation programs also threaten their traditional areas and lifestyles. Conservation measures to safeguard marine biodiversity and coastal ecosystems can limit Moken access to traditional fishing grounds and foraging regions. Furthermore, legal frameworks controlling property ownership and immigration present difficulties for semi-nomadic people without fixed residences, hindering their absorption into national governance structures. Despite these obstacles, efforts are being made to protect Moken cultural heritage and promote sustainable livelihoods. Initiatives fostering cultural regeneration, community empowerment, and environmental care are crucial to preserving the Moken lifestyle. These efforts include educational programs incorporating traditional knowledge into official education, economic measures promoting sustainable resource management, and campaigning for indigenous rights and recognition. The Haida people. The Haida people lived in the lush landscapes of Haida Gwaii, previously the Queen Charlotte Islands in British Columbia, Canada, and the southern parts of Prince of Wales Island in Alaska, United States. They spoke the Haida language, a distinct dialect within the Haida language family, and their culture was inextricably linked to the land and sea around them. Traditional Haida society was organized around two moieties, or social divisions, that were matrilineal. Each moiety included multiple local segments or lineages, each with its region, village, chiefs, and obligations. This social organization was the cornerstone for their rule, with choices about war, peace, resource management, and cultural practices decided inside its structures. Economically, the Haida people thrived on the abundant resources afforded by their coastal habitat. Fishing was essential for their survival, with numerous species like salmon, halibut, and cod staples of their diet. The yearly salmon run was particularly noteworthy, as fish migrate upstream to spawn. This natural phenomenon offered a necessary food source and aided the Haida's ceremonial and artistic interests, since an abundance of salmon allowed for more leisure and cultural activities. In addition to fishing, the Haida practiced hunting, shellfish gathering, and plant harvesting. These actions were critical in reducing seasonal changes in food supply and ensuring the community's nutritional needs were supplied year-round. The coastal position also facilitated trade with neighboring indigenous communities, such as the Coast Tsimshian and Tlingit, which benefited the Haida economy by exchanging surplus resources. Hunting and fishing were essential parts of Haida's existence, necessitating specialized tools and tactics tailored to their surroundings. Harpoons, bonefish hook, underwater traps, nets, and cedar fiber woven fish lines were all used for fishing. These instruments were valuable and culturally significant, with elaborate motifs reflecting Haida's creative traditions. Hunting on land and sea required a wide range of skills and equipment. The Haida hunters used bows and arrows for precision shooting, copper knives and double-sided daggers for close-range engagements, and spears for fishing and hunting larger sea mammals such as seals, porpoises, and whales. Each instrument was methodically built from materials discovered in the environment, demonstrating resourcefulness and flexibility. Seals, in particular, presented a unique difficulty because of their intellect and quickness. Hunting them necessitated stealth and ingenuity, frequently requiring techniques for approaching them undetected while they basked on rocky outcrops along the coast. Once within striking distance, hunters used clubs to execute a quick and humane death, causing the animal as little pain as possible while maximizing the utility of its meat and fur. Beyond subsistence, hunting provided raw materials for clothes and other necessities. Animal furs were converted into clothes that provided warmth and shelter from the elements, while bones and sinews were used to make tools and beautiful ornaments. This comprehensive approach to resource utilization demonstrated the Haida people's intense respect for the natural environment and dedication to sustainable methods. Today, the Haida people's legacy lives on via their cultural traditions, artistic achievements, and continued management of their ancestral grounds. While the Haida may use modern technologies and materials for hunting and fishing, the essential ideals of respect for nature and careful resource management remain central to their culture. Preserving traditional knowledge and practices guarantees that future generations can continue to benefit from and be inspired by the Haida people's rich cultural history. The moderate temperature of Haida Gwaii and Prince of Wales Island reduced the need for substantial agricultural methods. Instead, the Haida concentrated their energies on exploiting the plentiful wildlife in the temperate rainforests and clear rivers surrounding their villages. Deer, elk, bears, beavers, and other smaller game animals offered additional nourishment and materials for clothing, tools, and ceremonial things. The Haida people's strong connection to the sea and their surroundings influenced every part of their lives. The Haida's cultural endurance and adaptation are evidenced by their elaborate social structures, sophisticated economic systems, and inventive hunting and fishing skills. By embracing their legacy and sharing their stories with future generations, the Haida preserve and honor the traditions that have nourished them for millennia. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more exciting ones.